development and political strategy, which is ahead of the 2026 elections. From flagship policies such as free education, debt restructuring, and massive recruitment in health and education, to ongoing challenges like high cost of living, power shortages, and stalled reforms in mining and agriculture, and government's performance is under close scrutiny. Now, today on Voice of the People, we engage Father Frank Bwalya, UPND Director General for Media and Presidential Support Program, having transitioned from priesthood and diplomacy to political communication. Father Bwalya is now one of the key figures shaping UPND's public narrative. We explore with him how the party measures its progress so far and how it responds to criticism and what strategies it has to consolidate political trust as Zambia moves closer to 2026.
A very good morning to you. My name is Patrick Chifwan. We're joining the Queens of Breakfast this morning. Father Frank Bwalya, good morning to you.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be back here. I love these studios.
Awesome.
Above all, the people.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Father Bwalya, kindly describe your role within the UPND media team.
My title is Director General under the UPND support program. It is also called Presidential Campaign Team. So during campaigns, the work that we do, and during that, during campaigns, we are called Presidential Campaign Team. But outside the election cycle, outside elections, when we are no longer campaigning, we are called the Presidential Support Program. And my title is Director General for Media. So under my team, we have 4 directorates that is under my office. We have one for digital media that looks into issues of social media, Facebook, online publications, and so on. We have conventional media, another directorate. We have another directorate, the third one, that is research, and another one, popular support. The one for popular support, this directorate deals with issues of engaging industry captains, influencers, traditional leaders, religious leaders, various people whose constituencies we can tap into. So my role, answering that question, my role is to coordinate these directorates, the activities of these directorates, and ensure that our committee or our team realizes the mandate that we have. And the mandate that we have can be in the following words, which is actually our mission statement. The media team of the PCT or PSP exists to implement initiatives and activities to make President Hakainde Hichilema popular, especially among. And when it comes to the vision statement, it is simple. President Hakainde Hichilema well-rooted in the community.
Awesome. Just to cross the T, would you prefer to be addressed as Father Bwalya or Ambassador Bwalya?
Frank Bwalya is fine.
Okay, awesome. Great. Now that we got that out the way, how would you evaluate the UPND's record in the last 4 years in terms of its promises and its manifesto?
The performance has been phenomenal. Others have described it as excellent. Others have described it as very successful. But we hasten, as UPND support program, to paint a background, because in the absence of that background, the dynamics within which the UPND has recorded this high score, it may not be easy for people to appreciate. Of course, we know Zambians would appreciate because they are here, they know what has been happening. I don't need to belabor a point to explain the 3 deadly Ds, that is debt and drought. I don't need to. But there are also people listening to or following a program such as this one who may be outside Zambia, or some Zambians who may not appreciate some of these things. So the UPND came or formed government at a time when Zambia was heavily indebted, which led to the default that everyone knows. If you look at it from the perspective of when you default, when you fail to pay all money, and they are coming to your house one after another, now mwakongwere kwefi bafa bonse baleisa. And when you say, I've been sick, I don't have the money, then they ask, ne bafa liandirire lwala. So these people are coming to your home asking for their money. It's a very, very dire situation. You can't concentrate, you can't do anything. Above all, your name is damaged. So even when you have a genuine problem, you need to borrow some money to go and mourn a loved one, maybe even to just borrow a bit of money to hire a small cab to the hospital, to the mortuary and so on. You are not able to do that because no one in that neighborhood trusts that you will be able to pay back the money. That is the scenario where we are coming from. As the UPND was dealing with this problem and you needed to deal with it, the PF tried, it didn't work. So immediately the UPND formed government. The first thing that needed to be done was debt restructuring. But even as that was being done, then we had the next D, that is drought. Everyone knows what happened. Independent media, individuals, farmers, institutions such as the church, civil society organizations and so on, they all flashed pictures of how our farmers, their crops were devastated by the drought. But the most important thing, or should I say the main negative consequence, was the reduced levels of water in the main water bodies that we use for generating power. And Zambia being highly dependent on hydropower generation, that created a very, very big problem that compounded the already existing problem of debt and the depressed economy. So lack of power, which we still are experiencing today. I had to wake up very early in the morning because I remembered I needed to iron my shirt. I've got a wife at home. We don't have a maid. So I do ironing sometimes. Other times my wife does it. But for this morning, the shirt that I wanted to wear, which I'm wearing now, I remembered it was not ironed. So I needed to wake up very early, around 04, in order to do that, because power goes around 5:30. We don't have power until 21 hours. This time around, when we have the annual maintenance happening at Mamba. So this has been the biggest problem. The UPND, despite these two deadly Ds, providing free education, and not just free education, but also attending to what would make free education meaningful. What are these things? Ensuring that you recruit more teachers, ensuring that you increase classroom space, ensuring that you escalate the feeding program for children, so that at the end of the day, parents don't say, yes, we appreciate free education. Yes, we'd like to take our children to school, but we have hunger. We don't have food. Children of rich people would have a drinking bottle, a sandwich packed nicely for them. They will go to school at break time. They come out, they're playing, and they can eat something. But the children of poor people may not enjoy such luxuries. But this government has ensured that the feeding program for children is escalated, so that more vulnerable children are able to go to school knowing that there will even be food. And sometimes that inspires, encourages, motivates a child to go to school. Allow me to digress just a little bit. Archbishop Milingo, who of course was deflocked by the Catholic Church, says in his book, if I'm not mistaken, it should be the Demarcations, talking about what inspired him to become a priest. He says he would get the aroma of the nice food coming from the priest's house, And that made him admire to become a priest, because he said to himself, if I become a priest, I'll also be eating such nice food. The point he was trying to make is that sometimes things that motivate us, that make us do great things, may be simple things that you may not want to value as a motivation. So when these children know that they can go to school and eat something, some of them may be motivated.
Mr. Bwalya, talking of food, some of the promises that were made by the UPND was that mealie meal prices would go down. This has not really happened, and whispers now suggest to say that it's still an issue for the electorate. Would you answer to that?
Yes. So within that context of the deadly 2 Ds, the UPND, I'll come to the issue of food, the UPND has managed to stabilize the economy. The UPND has managed to honor and execute its responsibilities to ensure that at the end of the day, the people can live a good life. And you cannot offer people a good life when you are not giving them free education. So thousands, millions, I think 2 million children or so have gone back to school. Medicines are being put in hospitals. Policies are being implemented to ensure that we are not dependent on rain in terms of rain-fed agriculture, but that we can do more, invest more in irrigation farming. ZNS, the prisons service, and including private commercial farmers doing a lot in that space. But we need even more peasant farmers to join that. So coming now to the issue of food, yes, the UPND promised lower prices of mealie meal. But whether we'll go to 50 kwacha per bag, we have been told by Millers Association of Zambia, other stakeholders and so on, that the price may not go to 50 kwacha.
But that was the promise.
That may not be feasible, because you have a government that also promised farmers
a fair price,
value for their maize, and has honored that promise. In the absence of honoring that promise, would have been in a more difficult, dire situation, because then the farmers would not be motivated to grow the maize. So you first need to motivate the farmers to grow more and more, and when you have more, you can export. And we're going to be exporting this year because of the bumper harvest that we recorded. Then farmers will grow more. Then lower prices of maize and then mealie meal. But we are not at the stage where a bag of mealie meal, 25 kg, can cost 50 kwacha. I doubt if we'll ever be in that space. The experts have told us that may not happen. Nevertheless, we know that with the bumper harvest that we've had at the beginning of this year, even before they were able to harvest, the prices of mealie meal started going down. And this was reported in various towns. The price of fuel has gone down for diesel consecutively for 4 months. We are not in that space where some millers and other service providers and producers of goods would talk about the high cost of fuel as a reason for increasing their prices. We are no longer in that space. And what we have been saying, civil society included, the church, and various stakeholders, what we have been saying is that the government needs to do more to ensure that the people at the ground, ourselves, I'm also at the ground, ourselves are able to directly benefit by reduced price of fuel. However, we still have a problem, the problem of power. Because these producers are not just using fuel in terms of energy, they're not just using diesel or petrol, but they're also using electricity. And we don't have enough electricity. So at the end of the day, some of them talking about, for instance, the cost of a block, some of them are using diesel-propelled machines to run those machines, and that cost is being passed on to us. And that's why the president has made it his flagship project to increase power generation through alternative sources, solar to be specific. I think the presidential initiative targeting 1,000 megawatts of power, solar power. That is a lot, and it would make a very, very big difference. But I must hasten to say that as UPND, we have been a victim of our own success. A lot of investment has been attracted into Zambia in terms of foreign direct investment. A lot of Zambians have been motivated to do one or two things in terms of investment locally. And all these initiatives, the companies that are coming up, require power. Zambians are building. Wherever you see a piece of land demarcated and given to people, if it is government, within a day, those plots are gone. The next time you pass there, you won't recognize the place because structures will have come up. And these people need power. So we know that there is still a historical backlog at ZESCO, and that includes me. That includes me. So we are, as I said, victims of our own success. But this is not something that we should mourn about. This is something that we know government is doing a lot about to ensure that we have enough power, because in the absence of adequate power, it's not possible to double the economy, which is the vision of President Hakainde Hichilema.
And another issue at hand is the issue of corruption. Well, the opposition feels like they are being targeted, and you recently clarified that the Anti-Corruption Commission efforts are not meant to target the opposition. What's your reaction to that?
Somebody cannot claim that I'm being targeted because I'm in the opposition for corruption without, in the first place, admitting that they are guilty of corruption. However, they think that people on the side of the ruling party who are just as guilty should be pursued. So logically speaking, when you say I'm being targeted because I'm in the opposition, you should admit that you have committed whatever offense for which you claim you are being persecuted or targeted for. So what we have maintained as UPND, and I heard my brother Mark on another media platform the other day explaining very well these points. I know we may need to discuss how we interface, how we share ideas and learn from each other's experiences. Not all of us may be gifted to speak. Not all of us may be gifted to create content and so on. So we share these ideas. And so when Mark is on radio, when PS Tower is on radio, on any media, is on the side of government, Mark is on the side of the party. When my brother Shalala and many other people, including in my own committee, Wiseman Zulu, Cosmas Chileshe, Patrick Samuel Mbila, and all these people, when they are on the media, we listen. Because then we get ideas. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. The information is there. But some of our colleagues, of course, are able to couch certain messages, to coin certain terms and so on that we think are good to explain a point. So we learn. So the point remains that those who are guilty of corruption and they are arrested, they are made to account, they should be able to report whoever they think is also corrupt or has committed crimes that they have committed themselves and they are not being followed. And when that is done, it is not done to the UPND, as everyone knows, it is done to the police. So if the police are not doing their job, if the SEC is not doing its job, it's a question of Zambians agreeing, why are the police not doing their job in an environment where they have been allowed to do their job? Do we need to strengthen the laws? I don't think so, because the UPND will go down history of this country as that government that really strengthened laws to do with fighting corruption. And it's paying off. We have seen a lot of, for instance, cases of forfeiture of proceeds of crime and so on. And this forfeiture, it's not as if people are just, arrested and their property is grabbed. No. It's actually a negotiated settlement where somebody says, yes, I can't explain where I got these things from, but instead of me going to jail, you can take them. And this is something that is part of the international best practices, that instead of a government spending so much money and too much time in court pursuing an individual, spending a lot of money to persecute that case, if that person is willing under the law and is provided for under the law to forfeit these suspected proceeds of crime which comes to government, and then government can auction these things, sometimes turned into a prison for women, as we have seen in this country, that's a better option. It's provided for in the law. Until the law changes, that will continue.
But don't you think a custodial center store would act as a deterrent for would-be?
There are cases where you don't have a case of, for instance, somebody being found in possession of property that they cannot explain. There are cases where people have been given custodial sentences and they have gone to jail. But there are provisions where, in the wisdom of the law and the officers, they think that they can, this individual can forfeit without even going to court, can forfeit. I mean, they have to go to court because a consent judgment has to be entered or an arrangement of that sort. So it bends, it's up to the law enforcement agencies. And the UPND as a party is not anywhere near where these things are done. It's not our mandate. It's not our mandate. Our mandate as the ruling party is to govern this country using the instruments that have been put in place by the Zambian people.
Mr. Bwalya, just on the issue of corruption, certain sectors of society say that, yes, we're seeing prosecution of corruption cases, but we're not seeing prosecution of present corruption cases. A lot of reports indicate there's massive corruption going on, even as we speak. The FIC report for 2024, for instance.
Again, I was listening to my brother the other day, as I said, Mark, and he mentioned a few names, some names of our own members, some of them appointed as provincial minister, who were found wanting, persecuted, our own cadres, found wanting. It may not be a case of corruption, but a case of hooliganism and just breaking the law in that sense, being prosecuted. But there's this narrative in this country that as long as you are part of the ruling party or you are associated to the ruling party, even when you commit an offense, nothing will happen to you. So even when you have a report of, for instance, a minister, it could be a district commissioner, it could be a prominent member of the party being, for instance, allegedly defiling a child, the narrative already is cooked that nothing will happen to them. The thing may have happened, allegedly happened 2 days ago, and somebody will create the impression that this happened last year. And all this time, government, and usually they bring the president into these things who is too busy running the country. They bring him into the mix and they say, no, because this man had a photo with the president on this day, he's very close to the president. And if maybe the name of this person seems to suggest that they're coming from Southern Province, some people have gone to these shameless levels of trying to say, this one is Tonga, they will not arrest them. Very, very, very shameful. And we've never seen this kind of malice, this kind of cheap political propaganda in this country. As UPND, we believe that law enforcement agencies are doing their best. They have the law, strengthened laws to fight corruption, and it's up to them to do their job. When the public complain, there's an outcry for a specific individual to be arrested, it should not be the president or us as UPND to say to the police, no, the people want that person to be arrested. It doesn't work that way. And Zambians should know. And we know that many Zambians know, except for those who sometimes choose to behave as if they don't know, that it would be wrong to create such a kind of a culture in this country. It would be wrong. Such culture doesn't exist. If it existed, it doesn't exist under the UPND. Law enforcement agencies should be allowed to do their job without members of the party saying to them, arrest that one, don't arrest that one, and so on. So even our members continue to be arrested when they are found wanting.
Today on Voice of the People, we are joined by Mr. Frank Bwalya, who is the UPND Director General for Media and the Presidential Support Program. The phone lines are open, 0955-997-997 or 0979-192-485.
All right, so now from 2022 onward, UPND expanded free education and massively recruited teachers, which you earlier on alluded to, and health workers, and precedented in prior administration. Now, do you see this as the strongest pillar of your political record?
If the UPND, if President Hakainde Hichilema had introduced free education and left it at that, it was going to be very difficult for us, for him to convince the Zambian people that we have a president that is methodical, that we have a president that cares about the people of Zambia, that we have a president that is indeed taking this country forward. So what did President HH and the New Dawn government do upon introducing free education? They knew that first and foremost, this free education needs to be really free, and that the children should go back to school, because many children were staying at home, not going to school because there are these fees to pay all the way up to grade 12 and so on. We know and we do admit that it's not the first time we are having free education in this country. We had it under PF as well, and the UPND has escalated it. And it's one thing that people should celebrate about the UPND, that good policies from other governments, including the immediate past government, the PF, good policies are escalated. Good policies are not abandoned, because as long as those policies are well-intentioned, the cost is correct, it's not exaggerated, the UPND says it's government. You have to continue these programs. So what has the government done to ensure that this free education is indeed truly free, and that it is of value? We talked about the feeding program. We talked about, and you also mentioned, the recruitment of teachers, thousands, like never before in this country. Teachers that have been recruited. We're talking about the health rooms that are back at schools now, so that when the children are not feeling well, they don't need to, in some cases, walk some kilometers to go and be attended to. We have health rooms at these schools. Now, when you have a government, when you have a president that is thinking even to that level, for sure you can see that these are methodical people. For sure you can see that these are people who mean well, are serious, and are not just going to give you an initiative. They're not just going to give you, for instance, a vehicle so that you can run it as a yango. They will ensure that it has good tires. They will ensure that it has comprehensive insurance, so that in case something happens to the car, or indeed to the people on board, the insurance can pick up the bill and things like that. That's how the UPND is managing this country. That's how the UPND is managing the free education that is being offered. When it comes to, again, about education, we may not have free education at university level, such as we have from grade 12 going down. But the government already has demonstrated that funds available, we should have free education even up to university through the reintroduction of meal allowances. And the members say, "Ichikwanga wachimwena kumampalanya." And I like to say, wapeta mapatu nono lesaka kuteka pathingi. That is something from the Bible, that when you are able to manage small things in a prudent way, then they will give you even bigger things to manage. So the UPND has demonstrated concern, demonstrated commitment to have a top-notch education system in this country, but it has to be free.
Sorry to cut you off short. So we did have some feedback right here on the show where a teacher was saying that unfortunately, since everything has been scrapped off and they're not paying an amount of money, there are no extracurricular activities that these kids are doing after school. They used to pay 200 kwachas or 300 kwachas for, I don't know, PE or some other stuff, and which is now making them go and do bad vices in society. And also there's also overcrowdedness of pupils in classes. So what is UPND going to do about that?
Every good policy is going to have some unintended negatives. And therefore, we find it surprising as UPND that a teacher should be the one to complain about these things. If a teacher himself or herself is complaining about such things, what happens to me as a parent who has a child that needs to go to school? A teacher should not be complaining. A teacher should be discussing initiatives that they're putting in place to supplement government effort.
So we'll have to cut you off short. We have to pick up a caller. Hello, see you to Power Breakfast. Good morning.
Good morning, you're live.
Good morning.
Your name and where you're calling from?
This is Mutale calling you from Lusaka West.
Please go ahead with your question or contribution for Mr. Bwalya.
Your Excellency, good morning. How are you? Hello?
You can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to comment on the free education, which His Excellency is bragging about there. I have, last time as Power, you did host the other spokesperson of the UPND, is it Maximwe? And he was bragging on the same free education. And I challenged him, I told him to say, where I am in Lusaka West here at my farm workers' children, they'll tell you in their classroom, they're 123. One was telling me they're 112. This is a school which is just near the Kanyama police station. Now, to me, that is not education. You can't have a classroom which is being manned by one teacher and 128 pupils. That is chaos. I attended a government school, Kablonga Boys, in the 90s. You can ask the Foreign Affairs Minister. I was with him at Kablonga Boys. He was our deputy head boy. As much as we would be crowded, we will be maybe 40 to 45. And even then, our teachers faced challenges. Now, in these low-density areas, Kanyama, Chawama, this is the scenario. Because of this same free education, which the UPND keeps bragging about, the classrooms have been overcrowded by even these, the just enrollment is just enormous. So even to talk about that, they've recruited teachers, it has had no impact really. So there's really nothing to brag about. If you come into these schools and you find 120 pupils, that is not education, it's chaos. Please, I invite your comment, Your Excellency. Thank you.
Thank you. I can comment on this.
Please go ahead.
Yes, a number of things. Firstly, my brother, we are not bragging about free education because that makes it negative. We are only stating a fact that the UPND government has fulfilled one of the key campaign promises to offer free education. That has been done. Now that this campaign promise has been fulfilled, all of us, including yourself, what we now need to do is to see how we can improve the quality of this education so that it's not a mockery. What are the things government has done? I've mentioned a number of things. Unprecedented recruitment of teachers. Why is government doing this? Why has government done this? In order to improve the teacher-pupil ratio. So you can see that the commitment is there. The goodwill is there. And if this government was able to recruit everyone that has trained as a teacher and bring them into schools, if this government had the money to do that, and it would have been possible, a lot of progress would have happened in this space if it had not been for that one of the D's debt, because we're still servicing that debt and a lot of money is going into that. For sure, you'd agree with me that this government would have done it. As I said, if somebody is able to give you some small thing which they value, then you can believe that if they had more, you could also be given more. What else has this government done? It has continued building schools. Underscore the word continued. The PF built a lot of schools. We admit that, and we should celebrate. The UPND has continued. But above that, the UPND, like never before in this country, since independence, has recruited a lot of teachers in order to attend to the same problem that we're talking about. The school feeding program, of course, is making children to go back to school, some of them, and not even absent themselves. This is something that should be celebrated, but we do admit that there is need to improve the quality of this education. Now, coming to the numbers that you've mentioned, 123, and you mentioned 112. Instead of, okay, in addition to inviting me to comment on this, I'm asking you to invite me to that place this morning, to come to that place this morning and see it for myself. Because the last time somebody mentioned such figures and claimed that he was, I think on one of the radio stations, claimed that his wife was a teacher and she had 172, that was actually the claim, 172 pupils in the class. And the area that they mentioned, I knew that it was a lie. I knew that it was cheap propaganda. So I contacted this person. I happened to know them personally, and I said, and he said, Father, so please, my brother, I'm not doubting, but I want to come and see for myself. I'm saying this on media now. I've got other things to do, but I suspend whatever I need to do after this program. Tell me where you are. I want to come. And I want to go to that school. It's a public place. Just for me to go and sympathize with that teacher that has 123 and continue to knock on the door of the Minister of Education that this is not good. Because in other cases where this has been said, it's not true. You have 55, sometimes 70. I came across a situation where we had 70, and when we engaged the teacher claimed that other teachers who were posted to that area would not report because the facilities are not good enough in that rural area, which is understandable. But again, this government is doing a lot, building roads, building more schools, houses for teachers and so on. So the commitment is there. If the commitment was not there, then Zambians should be more worried. I'm saying more worried. There's cause to be worried now, but Zambians should have been more worried if they had a government that was reckless, if they had a government that was deliberately ignoring the need to do some of these things to ensure that this free education is of high quality. But one thing, in concluding on this matter, one thing that President Hakainde Hichilema will never compromise on, and this is justifiable, is that we are not going to keep children at home because we first have to improve the education system. We first need to employ more teachers, and then you can come back to school. We can't do that. And in some cases, in some places, the pupil-teacher ratio is not as bad.
0955-997-997 or 097912-192-485.
All right, you can be part of the conversation. Go to our socials as well, which is Facebook, and leave your comment and be part of the conversation today on Voice of the People as we host Mr. Frank Bwalya or Father Frank Bwalya. Right.
I should also, if you allow me, I should also quickly...
Just before you dive into that, maybe we can... Good
morning, you're through to Voice of the People.
Hello.
Yes, good morning. Your name and where you calling from? Okay.
Naposha como na guest studio Finish topic ya mine bakamba kwa Frankie Bwalya kaina kujoina nile pati nambira ko che papa tija ya mine kuno shana ko now after the government is building more schools, more roads. It is in Oneko UPND malodi ya mine bapanga apart from do carriage way ya mine tenga 4 years. Elo ya mine bakamba TI bana swankala 170 mkla swankala 50 milionayo na susana nayo. Because okay ngati mwakamba utati okay mashukuru jana mamingiwa na PF already bizi ya ngono banje bana wose wakange namu swanga pake shuwa mukagamba ti wonse babwere bini mashukuru simina mangilepo mashukuru ayishuwa swanga pake ngakatosho
Now we seem to have a bad line there. We're going to have to cut that one short. But I think you get the gist of what he's saying, Mr. Bwalya. Maybe you can respond to that.
Yes, please. He says that according to him, by UPND Subapangama roads, except for the Ndola Lusaka duo carriageway, ni road na eve okaidi, ni road. And when you say by UPND Swapangama roads, the UPND is building roads. But the model we are using is not a model where you just borrow money, you build roads in the compounds and there and so on at an exaggerated price, and then you fail to pay that loan. That is not the way the UPND is proceeding. Talking about, for instance, the Ndola Lusaka dual carriageway, Zambians, you and I should have paid through the nose through corruption. That road, we were told, was supposed to cost something in excess of 1.2 billion US dollars. And President HH, then in the opposition, alerted Zambians that that was exaggerated and that the road could be done at about half the price we were told that time. And he was told that he was dreaming. He was told that he could only achieve that if you greatly compromise the specs of the road. The specs of the road has not been compromised, including road furniture and so on. Everything, in fact, enhanced in many cases. And Zambia is building that road at exactly about half the cost that were initially told, which President HH disputed. That is another election promise fulfilled. Now, talking about education, you know, we are surprised as UPND that Zambians should propagate this idea that children should be made to go back home. Those who have gone to school because of free education, they should be made to go back home until such a time when the education system has been improved, until such a time when we have more teachers recruited and so on, then these children can come back to school. How old will those children be, if at all they'll still be children, for that to happen? Because these challenges we have are not just in Zambia. We have challenges everywhere. You see how the American president is slapping tariffs on almost everyone because of the challenges that they have at home. Even China, which has recorded so much advancement and economic development, they have their own challenges. A lot of challenges. You go to Europe, people are talking about the cost of living and so on. So when will that time come in Zambia, where you can say, now we have so much money, we have enough money, we have improved our education system, and there will only be 30 pupils in a class, of course with one teacher. When will that time come? And is that the way you run a country? No. Even countries that have some of the best education systems, they went through challenges. There were bottlenecks. We are at that stage. But the situation is not as bad as some people would like to paint it, to a point where this president should steal the future of children by telling them to go back to school until the education system has been fixed. As if it is totally run down, it can't function.
Okay. Now, another thing that you have brought out is, of course, the high cost of living, as we continue seeing debt restructuring as well, CDF and free education, but also concerns about the skyrocketing cost of living and inflation. It dropped a little bit. How is the UPND addressing these economic frustrations without diluting long-term solutions?
Yes. So, as I said, as UPND support program, we focus mainly on the president, rooting the president, campaigning for the president during elections and so on. Then we are on the side of the ruling party. We are a structure or a creation of the party. Then you have government. And the Minister of Finance, other ministers, Honorable Chipoka Mlenga, Honorable Mlenga, the Vice President, all those people there, of course, including the President at the helm of that system, at the apex of that system, telling us the policies that this government has been putting in place to address cost of living. Now, for purposes of this program, allow me to make this point, which sometimes we ignore. It's not just about bringing the prices down, which is lowering the cost of living. It is also lifting the people to where those prices are, if you allow me to use this basic terminology, raising the people to afford some of these services and products. Because these services and products are also being produced by the same people who are talking about high cost of living. A person who grows vegetables, they are a farmer. They grow vegetables, all kinds of vegetables. They supply to chain stores and so on. That person is also talking about the high cost of living because of the inputs and so on. Somebody who is a teacher is also talking about high cost of living. While other people, when they talk about the high cost of living, this could be a lecturer in university, they include the cost of fees in universities. So
okay, keep on going.
Yeah, so we also have to look at what this government is doing to make people afford job creation, not just in the public sector, but also in the private sector. The huge investments that are coming into this country, huge investment by our own people, those are creating jobs. So somebody who didn't have a job yesterday, when they are recruited as a nurse, and thousands have been recruited, it means that they've got an income. Their language in terms of cost of living may not be the same as somebody who doesn't have an income. So on that side, and we should never ignore that side, this government has been walking the talk. This government has achieved a lot.
So, Mr. Frank, so how are you going to cater for those that didn't go to school, for example, that didn't acquire a degree or a diploma for maybe nursing or teaching, but they are having challenges with the high cost of living? How are you also catering for those types of people?
The people in the compounds will tell you that one thing they celebrate about this government in terms of being methodical is looking at the picture, looking at the situation from various angles. So President HH says, if you have gone to university, you have a degree, education is the greatest equalizer, good for you. But if you have not gone up to grade 12, or you have gone up to grade 12, but you don't have a degree, you don't have that kind of education, but you want to acquire a skill and work at Mingomba mine that is coming, and thousands of jobs will be created there. You want to work at KCM because KCM is back in the open pit, not in the court. They are back in the open pit, they are back mining. You want to get a job there, you need a skill. And the president has actually been seen, Mechola, going to the doorstep of every household where you have young people like that, putting money at the doorstep in terms of CDF. In Dalameshi, abalefwaya skill. He goes to the next house in Dalameshi, those who really want to get a skill and get a job at Mingomba, get a job at Shaft 28, get a job at Kansanshi, at Lumwana. That's what this government has done. And when we talk about skills, this is real. We are not just talking about a nice sounding program that is not working. In fact, the complaint is that that money is not being utilized to a level that this government, the UPND government expects. So everyone is being looked at. This is a government that is indeed looking at the picture from all angles in order not to leave anyone behind. For old women and old men, some of them who may be disabled and it may be difficult for them to engage in any kind of meaningful job to earn a living, social cash transfer has been escalated. That is despite the huge challenge we still have of the two deadly Ds, drought and debt. This government is still doing that. And everyone that is scoring, that is giving us a 9 out of 10, they are giving us that from that background. And they are saying, if it had not been for this debt burden, if it had not been for this drought, and it's man-made, so there's very little we can say about it. It comes once in a while and so on. This government, if it had not been for these two deadly Ds, this government would have performed extremely, extremely well. And that's why even our brother, Dr. Luwindabazoka, even Dr. Sixtus Mlenga, I was listening to, I don't know, it wasn't this radio, but to some radio station where he was saying, we have a government that knows what it is doing, knows where to take us, a government that has put this country on the right trajectory, and good things are yet to come. Because if I quote my brother Clayson Amasaka at State House, people may think this is propaganda. No, these are real figures. This is the real situation. And many people, independent people, including some who are our fierce critics, they are telling the Zambian people the same thing, that in terms of economic management, prudence in the management of the economy, having a vision of what needs to be done, this president, this government is doing a great job. They are the best.
Mr. Bwalya, as we wind down, some of your critics, as you alluded to, and your supporters are asking the question. Yes, on paper, you're telling us that the economy is in the right direction, that growth is projected to be around 6%, according to a Bloomberg recent report. But when is it going to translate into food in the belly? Yes. Into lower prices of commodities? Yes. When is that going to happen?
Yes, even when you graduate, my brother, when you graduate from the university, all you have is a paper. On paper, you are very qualified. On paper, you performed very well. You could even have been the best student. But just the paper, it's on paper. The question is, when are you going to prove that indeed you are educated and that the family did not waste resources to take you to school? It's when you get a job and keep that job and work well and get promotions, bonuses, and so on. So this government has got a paper. This government has got the economy on the right trajectory. Does it mean that there are no benefits accruing to the Zambian people? This will come later. No, a lot of benefits, but more are to come. A lot of benefits. The mines have been fixed. A lot of investment going into the mines. You can't say to me, I have failed. When it is September, I'm plowing. I've got the right seed. I've got the money to hire a tractor to plow my field. You can't tell me that I failed. Wait until I have planted, good rains have come, or I have irrigated, I've done the weeding, and it is harvest time. Then you can tell me I've failed or I've succeeded. That's the stage where we are. The economy has been put on the right trajectory. The debt restructuring has been achieved. Prudent management of the economy. A lot of investment, not just foreign direct investment, but local investment being inspired by this leadership, policy consistency, even in the mining sector and everywhere, and things are happening. Things are happening. The government is getting even more money from the mines. The same money, part of it, which is being used now to pay meal allowances, to put medicines in hospitals, to be at the level in terms of medical medicines and medical equipment supply in our hospitals above 80%.
Sorry to cut you off short.
See if we can squeeze in our last caller. Good morning. Bwalya.
No, I just have to Pawolo in the Fraser.
Fraser?
Fraser, I think I'm going to Mississippi. But guess what? There's a lot of come back to the fingers, but the government will have this motion of poison in the park. What about what that is what it's only that money. It's about business money. One is for 4,000 Somba, like blow my city. I don't know that you have to. Now that the government is on the person, I'm moving to the city. It's all what it is. It's in our the mind. I'm a miner. You know, blow up the so why is it not a shooter? Some of them are a shooter. Because it's something very hard to go to tell it. It's not for them to do, but why should the market good? Kirango, the mother also people in the world, what is the money that they want to put the money? I like to watch our league, but some people don't know, I'm not our point to come. What we can do is that how come I'm done and you want to do? I'm sorry, my first money, but if you're in the market, what's done, you can write it,
Many thanks indeed.
I didn't get anything because of the echo.
Yeah, I think we had a bad line. If I get some of the points you alluded to, maybe we can conclude on that. The issue of power exports. Mm-hmm. Why are we exporting power? That's the question that seems to come around every so often. Why are we exporting power when we're being load shedded 15, 20 hours a day?
We've made it very clear. The experts have repeated the same things. In fact, we are the ones repeating what the experts have told us, that the current situation we are in of power deficit is not because 90% of the cake, 90% of the mealie meal is given to the neighbor and only 1% is left for the household. That is not the situation. And that is the worry of many Zambians. So when we respond to this question, we end at that. It is not true. It's because of the unprecedented drought that we experienced in this country, which has created a situation where we are not anywhere near full capacity in terms of power generation at Kafue, at Kariba, at Vicforce, and other places where we generate power. That's the problem that we have. What should Zambia do? What Zambia should do is what President Hakainde Hichilema has been doing and the New Dawn government. More energy diversification, solar energy, 1,000 coming. Also to build capacity in terms of importing power from other countries. This time around, we are told that Tanzania has excess power, but we are not connected. They are not part of the Southern African Power Pool interconnector. So a line is being built by this government. But the way you were speaking, you could feel one message I got very clearly, that the caller is not happy. We are not blaming you for not happy. I'm not happy. I told you that I woke up at 04 to iron a shirt because power would go around 05 or 6, somewhere there. I'm not happy. Our incubator is switched off. In fact, before the routine maintenance at Mamba, which we are going through now, which has compounded the situation, but it won't be for a month, we had our incubator on. Then we had this problem. And I don't have enough money to run a genset to power the incubator. So we had to switch it off. And we had to throw eggs. And some of those eggs were not mine. They were for other people. That's a loss. That's what we are all going through. So this impression is created that if you are a praise singer, then you go to State House every morning to collect money, and therefore you can manage to praise this government because after all, you are well off. That's not the situation. We've got relatives. The president himself has got relatives, even in the village, relatives who are working, relatives who may be welders and so on. And we are all going through this. But the government is doing a lot. The government is doing the right thing to resolve this problem.
Mr. Bwalya, I wish we could go on and talk longer than this, but unfortunately we are out of time. It's been a pleasure having you on Voice of the People.
Please allow me to give the number to that caller who talked about 112 children. My number is 0 097 107892.
I'll allow you to repeat that.
0978 10 7892. Please call me after about 10 minutes. I will have left the studio. After 10 minutes, I mean it. I want to come to that place and see for myself so that we can continue knocking on the door of the Minister of Education to keep recruiting teachers. Not as if to say they are not aware and therefore that's why they are not recruiting. There are these competing needs, but we need to continue knocking on their doors so that the education system can continue to be improved even as they are doing it.
Many thanks indeed. Our guest this morning, Mr. Frank Bwalya, who is the UPND Director General for Media and the Presidential Support Program. Many thanks once more.
Pleasure.
Voice of the People, Monday to Friday from 8:45 to 8:30 a.m. Great morning conversations start here.